that the DA has cast aspersions on the credibility of the IEC. Remember, during the 2021 local government elections, the DA made a claim that the court judgment that was to be handed down by the Constitutional Court had been leaked. That the court judgment that was handed down around the electoral timetable, remember that court judgment, that it was actually leaked to the ANC, and that's why the ANC was behaving in certain ways with regards to the extension that they had required before as well. Again, there was no evidence to support that particular allegation, but here is another allegation or inference that you can draw from what the Democratic Alliance is saying. What's your take on it? A bit later on, we'll play a clip from the leader of the Freedom Front Plus speaking to Sakina Kwamendo a bit earlier on this morning about what they read into this whole situation. I was speaking to the IFP leader this morning as well, and he said that they don't see anything wrong with it, asking for asking for electoral observers to come and observe the elections. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you got nothing to hide, why would you say don't call the USA to come and observe the elections? But then one thing that he pushed against was the concern that the ANC may refuse to relinquish power, considering that in the various municipalities that the ANC has lost, as well as, for instance, the Western Cape as a province that they had lost to the DA, the ANC relinquished power, and there was no violence that played out. So I'd love to hear your take on it as well, the concerns that have been raised by the Democratic Alliance. You can drop me a voice note on 0614-104-107 and an X at Aldrin Sampear. We'll be speaking to Terry Tselani about that. He's a former commissioner at the IEC and also currently the executive chairman of the Institute of Election Management Services Africa. He's joining us at around 4:45. Also on the show this afternoon, we speak to Dr. Ferrell Adams, executive manager for WaterCan. Residents in Johannesburg been experiencing water shortages over the past weeks, about 9 days, due to the lightning strike that hit City Power transformer, and also another outage incident that took place as well. So the impact that has had, and also the call that municipalities shouldn't rely on water tankers. So we're speaking to Dr. Adams about that. Back again to election-related news. Dr. Greg Mills, executive director of the Brandhurst Foundation, is joining us. Their survey shows that the ANC support at a national level could go down to around 39%. Their research has also found that the MK party, the newly launched MK party, could actually surpass the ANC's electoral base or support in KwaZulu-Natal, and that the MK party would secure the highest number of votes. However, though, it will still not make the majority. They instead have a graph that shows the multi-party charter, that if the multi-party charter parties came together, they would have the highest votes, and that is, of course, inclusive of the IFP and the Democratic Alliance, who are part of the multi-party charter. 0614-104-107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 000 2032.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
It's 15 minutes after 3 o'clock. We're in conversation next with Advocate Tsepo Boikanyo, who's the executive in charge of the POPIA with the Information Regulator. The Information Regulator has confirmed receiving 2 notifications from the IEC regarding a security breach that saw the unlawful release of candidate list for the ANC as well as the Umkhonto weSizwe Party. However, the incident has raised questions about provisions of the Protection of Personal Information Act and how it should be implemented during this election season. Following the unfortunate incident, the Electoral Commission has assured the nation that they are investigating the matter. For more on this, we speak to Advocate Tsepo Boikanyo. Advocate Boikanyo, good afternoon, and thank you so much for making time for us.
Good afternoon, Aldrin, to you and your listeners.
So, since this notice has been handed over or has been made with the Information Regulator, what have you been able to do so far?
Already, as you rightfully pointed out, on Friday, the 8th of March, we received 2 security compromise notifications from the 2 parties, the ANC and Umkhonto weSizwe. And upon our preliminary assessment of these security compromises, we found that they were not fully compliant with the provisions of POPIA, specifically Section 22, subsection 5, in that they did not provide a full description of the possible consequences of the security compromise and the measures that were to be taken by the IEC to mitigate the possible adverse effects of the security compromise. So, insofar as the Umkhonto we one is concerned, we also were not provided with a number of data subjects. In other words, the candidates that were on the list whose personal information was leaked. Insofar as the ANC security compromise is concerned, there were 204 data subjects that were affected by the security compromise. It is against that backdrop that we then directed an information notice to the IEC, but that was not only the reason why. Obviously, when there is a security compromise of this magnitude, we also want to establish certain things. And one of the things that we want to establish are the security measures, whether the organization in question, that is the IEC, the responsible party, had taken appropriate and reasonable and technical measures to ensure to prevent any unlawful access to the personal information in question. You would know that our Section 19 of POPIA says that any responsible party that is in possession of personal information must ensure that it secures the integrity of such information and the confidentiality, and takes reasonable and technical steps to prevent that unlawful access. And that's the reason why we then had to direct that information notice to the IEC.
Has the IEC responded as yet?
We have provided, as I said, it was only on Friday that we received the security compromise. We have afforded the IEC 5 days within which to respond to our information notice. But I must also hasten to say that we also do not, on the notification, there is no indication of the nature of the personal information that has been accessed or that has been leaked, if you allow me to use that word. So what we then need from the IEC is for the IEC to confirm what exactly is the nature of the personal information that has been leaked, in order to enable us to determine the cost that we need to take insofar as the security compromise is concerned.
And with that said, what constitutes an unlawful disclosure of somebody's personal information? Because with this particular list, yes, currently it is still an internal list for the IEC, but eventually the list will be made public so that the public and other candidates and political parties can scrutinize the list, and if they want to make an objection, they can make an objection. So what constitutes a list and a breach of the POPIA Act?
Aldrin, we cannot be looking at what would be happening in future. If any responsible party that is in possession of personal information must secure that personal information. And yes, you are correct that personal list was in the future going to be made public. But there are certain internal processes that first had to take place within the IEC. And the authorized people are the ones that are supposed to be publishing the personal information in question. So it is not a mitigating factor, the fact that this information is taken out in the public domain because somebody says, well, in any event, in future this information was going to be made public. It has to be issued and in an appropriate way, in a manner that is authorized through legislative means.
Okay. And again, around the question of what constitutes the unlawful release of personal information, if the list has people's names, is that personal information that has been released? So this is now excluding ID numbers, addresses, and so forth.
Well, yes, you're correct. And the names would also fall within the personal information. But I think what compounds this problem is if what is being reported in the media is anything to go by, is the fact that it contains it might contain unique identifiers, which is the ID numbers of the responsible parties. But we are obviously waiting for the IEC to confirm the nature of the personal information that has been leaked. Suffice to say, Aldrin, at this stage, that that information in terms of the law has to be published so that it can afford people the opportunity to, if they want to object, to those names. But the unique identifiers should be blurred from that particular list.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. That is the executive in charge of POPIA with the Information Regulator, Advocate Tshepo Boikanyo. 0614-104-1807, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
So Sharon officing was telling me the way drip is so expensive these days. She's now waiting for her old clothes to come back into fashion. I say, Joza, while you're waiting, why not let your money do the things in a Nedbank Just Invest account where you can get your money after 24 hours notice? Oganchani voiceman.
In Jalo Mabel, you can earn up to 8.75% interest. Anyone can open an investment account via the Money app in under 2 minutes. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. Promo rates apply.
Fly better to your next holiday. Book your flights with Emirates to a holiday in Dubai, London, Istanbul, or Paris. Look forward to delicious regionally inspired cuisine, enjoy free-flowing premium drinks, and relax to your favorite movies on the way. Because it's not just about the destination, it's how you get there. This year, fly Emirates. Fly better.
The SABC TV Licenses Winner Holiday Experience competition has finally come to an end. And we are pleased to announce that Thabo Batye is the overall winner who will be jetting off to Coachella in April with his girlfriend.
I don't even know what to say.
Thabo entered the Winner Holiday Experience with SABC TV Licenses competition last year when it was running between 1 September and the 15th of December. He simply paid his TV license while he was at his grandmother's house in Kimberley, and he was hoping to win a PlayStation at the time. Little did he know that he would win the grand prize to either Coachella or the Bundesliga in Germany. Thabo obviously chose Coachella. Congratulations, Thabo. You are proof that paying your TV license really is the right thing to do. SABC TV Licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
0614-104-107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086-000-2032. We're in conversation next with Charles Nyokonge, who is an African Affairs commentator. With Cote d'Ivoire due to hold its presidential elections next year, the former president, Laurent Gbagbo, has thrown his hat in the ring in a bid to regain his old job. Gbagbo served as president of Cote d'Ivoire from 2000 up until 2011, and in 2019, he was acquitted by the Netherlands-based International Criminal Court on charges relating to his role in a civil war sparked by his refusal to concede defeat in an election. So what does his candidacy mean for the incumbent and the electorate at large? Are we likely to see another political showdown between Gbagbo as well as Alassane Ouattara? We now speak to Charles Nyokonge. Charles, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, and thank you to your listeners.
What do you make of the decision of former President Laurent Gbagbo to contest the elections again, considering that back in 2020 he was barred by the courts?
In 2020, he was barred by the courts pending the investigations which the ICC acquitted him for in 2019. So I see two things. One, President Gbagbo thinks that the country owes him an opportunity to serve, and two, the opportunity or the timing of Gbagbo indicating that he wants to run comes at a time when Alassane Ouattara himself had indicated in 2020 that he was fatigued, and his anointed successor passed on just before the elections, which made him to change his mind. Going into 2025, it is very doubtful as to whether Ouattara would actually still run again, but I suspect that the lessons he would have learned before 2020 would have been to make sure that he has enough potential successors who can run and continue his campaign. So Gbagbo joins the race at a time when perhaps there are only two potential successors to Ouattara. In this case, we have Patrick Achi, who is a former Prime Minister, and Robert Mambe, who is a current Prime Minister. I believe that it is a contested ground, and if Ouattara decides not to run, it will be an interesting political space to watch.
Laurent Gbagbo turns 79 years next year. Do you think, or this year rather, do you think that age will be an issue at all for people of Cote d'Ivoire? Yes, before he did enjoy a lot of support, or do you think that, well, age is nothing but a number?
I would not say age is nothing but a number, but I will quote a famous African president who said, political power or governing a country is not about who can. It's not about who wants, but who can. And sometimes that there are people who are even 80, 90, who are more agile, and perhaps who even argue that that age comes with substantial experience and to manage the pressures of the office of the president, of which sometimes the young ones may have the energy or the vigor, but would lack the experience and the mettle to actually handle that position. Gbagbo has been there. He knows what he's dipping his hands into. Suffice to see what the political space is going to be towards the end of this year as Cote d'Ivoire prepares for 2025.
Yeah. Is there a possibility at all that that there could be violence ahead of the elections? Normally when we go into the elections and we say that when we observe the election season is not only observed on election day, but it is the period also leading up to the elections and the period after the victor had been declared.
I do not foresee any violence, and especially not now. I think that Cote d'Ivoire has enjoyed a period of relative stability under Alassane Ouattara. He has engaged several developmental projects which have transformed the face of the country, both from Abidjan and extending into the countryside, or extending right to the north, to the extent that there's general content or there's general pleasure amongst the citizenry to say that he has done good in terms of delivering essential services is concerned. The challenge now for the people is who is going to continue in this developmental trajectory which Alassane Ouattara has actually started. Would it be Gbagbo, or would it be somebody who is anointed by Alassane Ouattara? I think that even Gbagbo is anointed by Alassane Ouattara, given that they have reconciled and the state has paid the indemnities that were owed to Gbagbo, or are currently paying those indemnities that were owed to him as a former president. So to the extent that these political that the country has gone through this phase of healing, I think that the people of Ivory Coast are scarred by the challenges or the conflict which they had in the post-election, and it is very unlikely that they would have that in this coming election.
Thank you so much for your time. That is Charles Nyokonge, who is an African affairs commentator on the request or the quest by former president of Cote d'Ivoire, Laurent Gbagbo, to run again for the upcoming elections in 2025. And mind you, in 2025, he'll be 80 years old. It's 3:30, time for the news headlines.
Good afternoon, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, Eskom says there are rolling blackouts in summer partly due to its planned maintenance. The Eskom team was briefing the media in Pretoria on the Energy Action Plan. A report by the ANC Integrity Commission has recommended 3 out of 16 candidates referred to it for state capture-related allegations can stand as candidates despite the Integrity Commission having made adverse findings against them. And a Nigerian government agency says schools in at least 14 of the country's 36 states, as well as the capital, are at risk of attacks following the recent kidnapping of hundreds of students. I'll have details on these and other stories at 4.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And let's see what's happening on the roads with Rob Byrne. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Aldrin. Afternoon. Quite a messy situation on the R21 in Pretoria, just north of the airport. Literally, it's a mayonnaise load that's been spilled today just by Pomona Road. There are lanes open, but most of the lanes are still closed, and it is heavy. If you're leaving the airport from sort of Voortrekker Road territory up through Atlas and on your way towards Pomona, it's all very heavily backlogged. You might want to avoid that. That's leaving the airport, heading through to Tembisa and Pretoria. And then if you're coming into the airport from Pretoria, the roadworks are still there between Clayville and Tembisa. So there's a bit of pressure, and that'll probably build over the the next hour or so, depending whether those roadworks are left in. They seem to have been for most of last week. The Mike 1 in Joburg's very heavy today, a crash at Crown, so traffic's already parked back to Houghton Drive in the Parktown area. Northern parts of KZN and the R34, the scene of this morning's major truck crash between Melmoth and Freyhead. The road has been reopened, but there is a bit of backlogging. The scene is not completely cleared, so you'll be able to get past trucks and vehicles, but there is some queuing pressure still at that scene. Final bits and pieces still to be cleared up. Pietermaritzburg to Durban, the blasting has been done and completed between Ashburton and Linfield Park, so it was a pretty quick blast today. All the backlog has moved through. There's no discernible delay in that area. And motorists coming out of Cape Town out through Hospital Bend, there's delays on Nelson Mandela Boulevard and Philip Kosana. A crash at Hospital Bend is backing both of those routes up, leaving the city centre area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Kapele.
And it's time for a sports update with the Duming Kapele. Dumi!
Aldrin!
Soweto derby.
Ooh, flames.
Yeah. Abantu bakhala. Snot entrana.
Oh man, it was so sad to see Jessica Mudawun crying, but it was an absolutely amazing match. Who would have thought? Chiefs and Pirates 5-goal thriller. Neil saw that coming, and I wouldn't have been surprised if a lot of Kaizer Chiefs fans thought they had it in the bag. Yeah. However, Pirates was like, not today, guys. Not today.
Unfortunately.
It was absolutely amazing. It was nice, and that's what we like when it comes to derbies. We want to see those goals. We don't want to see like draw. Even if it's a draw, at least in Neboma 2-2, 3-3, you know? But yeah, listen, Pirates did it again.
Yeah. But would you say overall that Chiefs' game has improved?
I mean, they can improve, but if they're not winning, the fans are not seeing it as improvement. Yeah. So the fans are just like, guys, okay, improve and win because we just want, and especially over a side like Orlando Pirates. Yeah. Then they'll be like, yes, because I was looking at some of the comments talking about Jessica crying, and some were like, those are crocodile tears. Now we just want to see games won.
Somebody said I must come and give Jessica my premium hug.
But it's a very good afternoon to you. Let's start things off with football. Bafana head coach Hugo Broos has named his final 23-man Bafana squad for the upcoming FIFA international friendlies against Andorra and Algeria. And a notable inclusion is Cape Town City star Kanyisa Mayo. Now, calls have increased for Mayo, the second top goal scorer and the best South African finisher in the DStv Premiership this season, behind only Mamelodi Sundowns Brazilian attacker Lucas Ribeiro to be called into the national team. And this comes after the 25-year-old was snubbed from the recent Africa Cup of Nations in Cote d'Ivoire. This was despite his performance in the domestic scene, as he last received a look in October last year. Meanwhile, Kaizer Chiefs goalkeeper Bruce Bavuma makes a return to the international scene following an extended absence since the AFCON qualifiers against Morocco in September 2022. Elsewhere, Bayern Leverkusen manager Xavi Alonso says that they are not yet talking about the season's Bundesliga title, despite being 10 points clear of Bayern Munich at the top of the table. Leverkusen are the only team in Europe that is unbeaten this season. However, despite their dominance, Alonso says that they're just taking it one game at a time.
To be honest, we prefer to wait a little bit longer. I think that April is probably will be the right time. It's still a lot of few games to play. We have the next one, Bundesliga in Freiburg. After that, we have Hoffenheim to Hause after the break. So we want to go step by step for sure. The situation is great, but we don't take things for granted.
Moving on to motorsport, Brad Binder says that it's a matter of time till his next MotoGP win after two stunning performances at the season-opening Qatar Grand Prix at the weekend. The Red Bull KTM man finished second in both the sprint and the main race in Doha to trail world champion Pecco Bagnaia by just 2 points in the title race. Then in tennis, Caroline Wozniacki and Angelique Kerber have recently returned from maternity leave, and they will face face off in the BNP Paribas Open round of 16 after picking up wins at the WTA 1000 event yesterday. In an all wildcard tussle in the night session, Wozniacki claimed a 6-2, 4-6 and 6-love win over Katie Volinets. And then earlier on, Kerber outs number 17, Veronika Kudermetova, 6-4, 7-5 to book her spot in the round of 16. In athletics, Johan van Vuren has qualified for the Paris Olympic Games. This is after jumping 8.30 meters yesterday during the Gauteng North Championships at Pilditch, and it's a massive personal best for the former South African long jump champion, and he says he's looking forward to the Games. On that note, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour. For SAFM Sport, I'm Dumin Khabele.
Gautrain is for the legends who make moves to save and pay from as little as 45 Rand from Pretoria to Midrand. It's for our clever who turn 5-liter bottles into workout dumbbells. And for the slim oaks who bring a home-cooked scuff team to work every day. So when it comes to travel, make moves that save and pay from as little as 45 Rand from Pretoria to Midrand Station. Gautrain, for people on the move.
Did you know that load shedding only happens when electricity demand exceeds supply? Eskom's team of specialists manages the grid 24 hours a day, 365 days a year to protect the electricity network. You can help reduce load shedding stages by continuing to use less electricity, particularly between 5 and 9 in the morning and evening when demand is high. Government and Eskom working hard to reduce and ultimately end load shedding.
TV licenses have developed a new GIS-linked national address database to ensure that we can communicate with all our valued license holders. We now have a visual of all licensed and unlicensed households nationwide in order to effectively communicate with you. We remind you to take note of our payment reminders and avoid paying penalties due to non-compliance or choosing to ignore your legal obligation to pay your license fees. We can communicate with all our license holders through cost-effective electronic methods, enabling us to collect license fees and continue to support the national broadcaster, the SABC, in accordance with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act No. 4 of 1999 as amended. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
It is 20 minutes now before 3 o'clock. Coming up in the next short while, we'll be in conversation with Terry Tselane, also 20 minutes before 4 o'clock. Coming up in the next short while, we'll be in conversation with Terry Tselane, who's a former commissioner at the IEC, but currently the executive chairman of the Institute of Election Management Services. We're trying to understand what role it is that observer missions play, considering the request that has been made by the Democratic Alliance that the US come and observe our elections. We'll deal with some of the issues that they are raising in the letter, because in the president's response to it, he said ordinarily it would be country to country, saying that, hey, and by invitation normally, and sometimes it is open to observers to apply, and then an assessment is made and determined whether or not the observer mission would be accredited to come and observe the elections. We'll also play a clip from the Freedom Front Plus's leader, Dr. Peter Groenewald, who also makes mention of the fear that the elections could be rigged. 0614-104-107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086-000-2032.
On the issue of DA writing to the United States, if the ANC has nothing to hide, Aldrin, let the US come and observe the elections. Unless they have something to hide, they will block the invitation by DA. DA is right. Good afternoon, Aldrin Sakile in Mpumalanga, MK supporter.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. I don't see nothing wrong if DA call USA to come and observe the election in South Africa. What is the problem to the ANC? Why are they scared? Why are they scared? If they are not scared, they are not supposed to regret what the DA was asking to USA. There is nothing wrong about that. Thank you.
Look, I don't understand why anyone should worry about the DA letter. South African elections are fair, sincere. Votes done in the ward counted there with every observer to being satisfied. In case of problem, there's recounting. In fact, manual voting is better than electronic because there is no verification and no auditing. But with manual, you can recount them and check and ascertain. Everyone is there. America can come and observe. Whether it's Russia or China, anybody can come. There's nothing to hide, you see. So why should ANC and South African government be worried? We've been in this election before. ANC lost power in Western Cape. There's not been a war. Metropolitans, metros, it was the same. Balula, but we're worried. Why worried about the secrecy of the list of ANC? ANC is a public party representative. They must know who represent them. There should not be no secret. Why blame IEC? God.
Well, that's because you're not supposed to be leaking that information. It will be made public at some point, according to the timetable, the election timetable. I think actually within this particular month, where you, as the public, can go and view the people that have been nominated by the various political parties and the independent candidates that are also contesting the elections, and decide whether or not you want to actually lodge a complaint or an objection to them being included in those provincial as well as national lists. Well, later this evening, the Electoral Commission is expected to reject attempts aimed at discrediting the country's electoral system ahead of this year's general elections. This follows the Democratic Alliance-led party. The Democratic Alliance has led multi-party charter decision to write to several foreign countries, urging them to help counter threats of domestic and foreign interference in the upcoming elections. The Freedom Front Plus, which is a part of the charter, says they are worried about the integrity of this year's elections. Earlier today, the party's leader, Dr. Peter Groenewald, spoke to Sakina Kwamendo. Take a listen.
We are worried about interference. You must remember that President Ramaphosa said that they have a secret weapon for the election. They will win the election. What does he mean by that? And we are asking him, now what are you meaning by that? That creates suspicion.
What suspicion? Are you suspecting that the ANC will rig the vote?
It's possible, of course. And I can give you examples. For instance, in previous elections, where, for instance, I said there were no votes for the Freedom Front Plus, and we knew that we had people there, and we queried it, and then they apologized.
Okay, so that is the leader of the Freedom Front Plus. Now listen to what the president had to say over the weekend. This is the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, who has hit back at the Democratic Alliance for undermining the country's sovereignty, and this is what he had to say.
The DA's letter to the United States government is quite disingenuous, and it is actually almost trying to mortgage our country to other powers in the world. We have our regional organizations. We have SADC, we have the African Union, and indeed we have the United Nations as well. They always come to monitor our elections, and in fact we invite them. We say, do come and monitor. But now for a non-state entity to do something like that is basically saying we are mortgaging our democracy to other parts. It doesn't matter to me who those are. We deal with regional organizations, continental organizations, and global organizations, and we invite them. So we think it's quite disingenuous, and there seems to be another agenda that underpins that.
Well, and then earlier on today as well, Dr. Naledi Pandor, the Minister of International Relations, labeled the DA's move as demeaning.
I find the letter totally astounding. South Africa has had 6 elections, which have always been declared free and fair, and we've always had election observation by invited observers, which have numbered over 120 often, different countries as well as organizations. So to write such a letter, particularly to countries that don't have observation and that have very low participation rates in the elections, is rather surprising and a demeaning attitude and statement about South Africa and the people of South Africa.
Well, that is the Minister of International Relations, Naledi Pandor, who of course is a member of the ANC as well. Joining us now is Terry Tselane, Executive Chairman of the Institute of the Election Management Service in Africa and also a former commissioner at the IEC. He now joins us on the line. Terry, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. As somebody who is highly experienced in this field and somebody who has worked with the IEC as well, what do you read into the letter that has been penned by the Democratic Alliance?
Good afternoon to you and to your listeners, and thank you very much for having me. That letter that purports to be coming from the Democratic Alliance is very, very strange indeed. And it's strange because the Democratic Alliance is an official opposition, and you would have expected them to understand the rules and the laws of the country, particularly the Constitution. And it is very worrying that therefore they would ask for a foreign entity to interfere in the electoral processes of a country. What they're asking for is not election observation. It goes far beyond election observation. We have observed the elections throughout the world. I headed up the African Union in the Gambia as the observation mission. And we know, those of us who've been in the game, what the powers are of election observers, what limitations they have, and then what they've got to do or how they've got to operate in each and every jurisdiction they go to. But when you ask a foreign entity to basically come and do voter tabulation, election tabulation, you are basically saying to them, I've got no confidence in the capacity of the Electoral Commission to run the elections, and therefore I want you to create an alternative counting system that is parallel to that of the IEC. They're supposed to know much better that the Constitution bestows the powers on the Commission. If they go to 190 of the Constitution, it will say the following, that the mandate of the Commission is threefold. One is to organize and manage the elections. Two, to ensure that those elections are free and fair. Three, to declare the results thereof. No other person can tabulate the results of an election and declare them or tabulate them in a manner that is being asked. Nobody should actually do that. And then, because to do that is to interfere basically with the work of the Commission. And the fact that the Commission is given these powers by the Constitution, it means no other person, no entity can interfere with the work of the Commission. You know, so that on its own, it's a violation of the Constitution to be saying to people, come and interfere with what the IEC is supposed to be doing. You know, so that's why I'm saying it's a serious violation of the Constitution, and it's got to be attended to.
Yeah,
but there is a second aspect. That second aspect relates to what they refer to as some political parties preaching populism. Now, the Electoral Act, particularly the Code of Conduct, says firstly all the political parties that are participating in elections must respect the authority of the Commission. Okay? And then secondly, that they must debate the issues, irrespective of where those issues are coming from and then what those issues represent. As long as there are debates and there are issues, they must be debated. But now, to summarily pigeonhole an opinion as a populism and then wanting international interference on that because you are unable to deal with that at a level of debate, dangerous, because all of us can then say anything that any political party says is populism. Because, I mean, who is there to define what populism is? But also to ask for international intervention on the basis of that is extremely dangerous. We've got to debate the issues. The Electoral Act, particularly the Code of Conduct, urges all the political parties to debate the issues.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how do you deduce from that letter that what they are essentially asking for, or what it would essentially lead to, is interference? Because the sense that I get from it is they're asking that the elections should be observed, but you're saying that no, it goes further than observation, it goes to interference.
Yes, it's not election observation. I know what election observation is. Let me tell you that in election management processes, there are two issues that are related to this. One is election mediators and election observers. The two have got to be separated. Okay. And in fact, what is actually being asked for here as election under the cloak of election observation, it's not election observation. It's basically interference with the work of the IEC and saying that we do not believe in the credibility of the Commission. Now, I'm saying that on its own is a violation of the Code of Conduct, because the Code of Conduct says all the political parties have got to assure their supporters of the authority of the Commission and the impartiality of the Commission. It is there. They've signed it. When they were submitting the list, all their supporters, all their candidates signed a code of conduct, basically meaning they are bound by that. Now, to cast an aspersion on the capacity of the Commission to run the elections, even before the Commission starts running the election, in itself, it is basically delegitimizing the electoral processes. It's making people feel uncomfortable about the electoral processes and creating all sorts of uncertainty about where the country is supposed to be going.
Yeah, so for the IEC, what do you think the IEC should be doing with regards to this? You mentioned a bit earlier on that what they're also asking for is unconstitutional.
Yeah, firstly, the Commission must actually, if I was part of the Commission, I was going to say that the Democratic Alliance must be called to come and account and then come and explain themselves what this letter is all about. Maybe we are discussing a letter that is never even their letter. I don't know. But firstly, the Commission, the starting point is to call on the Democratic Alliance to come and explain themselves. And then once they come to a determination that there is basically mistrust on the Commission, they've got to be able to provide evidence of why they mistrust the Commission. And then if the issues are so serious, then it means they must take the Commission to the Electoral Court. But on the other hand, if they find that they are not able to find each other, the Commission, it is upon their responsibility to also begin to refer the Democratic Alliance to the Electoral Court to say that you have not only violated the Constitution, you are also violating provisions of the Electoral Act as well as the Code of Conduct. And those issues have got to be dealt with. The fact that they mentioned the issues of observation has got absolutely nothing with the content of the letter. It is not about election observation. It's about asking for the interference in the work of the Commission, the work where the Constitution says nobody, not even any institution, can interfere with the work of the Commission. So that on its own It's a violation of the Constitution.
Thank you so much for your time. Terry Tselane is Executive Chairman of the Institute for Election Management Services in Africa and also a former Commissioner at the IEC. What do you make of that? Should the IEC be taking any steps against the Democratic Alliance to reveal the essence of the concern that they've raised in that letter to the US Embassy? They've written to Mr. Brigetti, the ambassador, and they're also in that letter are requesting for, okay, what's happening with my phone now? My phone is failing me. Okay, they're also requesting for meeting. It goes on to say, and this was penned by Emma Louis Powell, who is the DA's Shadow Minister of International Relations and Cooperations. It says, we will be requesting a formal meeting with your embassy in South Africa in the coming weeks. We will provide more specific details in respect of our request. In closing, please accept our assurance that the Democratic Alliance will continue to meet with and remind the international community that South Africa is more than her government, and that the spirit of peace, humility, compromise and resilience that characterized our nation's 30-year democracy or 30 years ago remains alive and well. Together we will navigate the road ahead with bravery. And again, that letter, actually the letter is the letter is penned to Anthony Blinken, that is the Secretary of State of the United States of America, but it is sent through Ruben Brigetti, who is the Ambassador of the United States to South Africa.
The African continent will soon vibrate. All eyes are glued on 2016 champs Masanda One of Mzansi, Ivorian Kings, ASEC Mimosa, Pedro de Luanda of Angola, 11-time winners and current African champions Al Ahly of Egypt. These CAF Champions League group winners will be drawn against group runners-up. DRC's TP Mazembe, ES Tunis from Tunisia, and the Giants of Tanzanian football, Simba Sports Club and Young Africans. Be part of the quarterfinals draw of the CAF Champions League 2023-2024 season on Tuesday, 12 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Introducing a collection of Audi Black and Urban Special Edition models crafted for the bold and curated for the progressive. From the sporty Audi S3 and elegant A4 to the distinctive Q2 and Q3, each vehicle has been created to be an extension of your identity. Style, design, comfort and technology is yours to own with a guaranteed future value and a competitive monthly installment through Audi Financial Services. Visit audi.co.za to discover more.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Mafaf Max Maponyane, former Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs star, and Bafana International. In your experience, having played in so many derbies, just how important is the derby on the South African football calendar?
It has always been important both to management and players, and the fans are the ones that will always be going around and bragging about the big feast. And what is very important is that it has always sort of set pace of what the team's confidence will be thereafter.
Talking about the midweek games, two 19-year-olds on the score sheet for the respective teams, so that augurs pretty well for the future of both sides, if they can keep these players.
Yeah, not only 19-year-olds, only a 19th fixture of the league. That was a coincidence.
Well done.
That is why I thought, are we expecting 20-year-olds to score?
Top Sport on SAFM.
MasterChef, the biggest, most loved culinary TV show on the planet, is coming to S3. This fresh local version of MasterChef South Africa will cook up a storm on S3 for the first time in 2024. Enter on www.masterchefsa.co.tv and start prepping for the opportunity to win R1 million and the prestigious title of Mzansi's new MasterChef. Entries close on the 15th of March. Channel A Better You only on S3. Open up.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
In our top stories, Eskom's update on the Energy Action Plan and ANC Integrity Commission's lifeline to 3 candidates. Good afternoon. Eskom says they are rolling blackouts in summer partly due to its planned maintenance. The Eskom team was briefing the media in Pretoria on the Energy Action Plan. The team says the power utility undertook planned maintenance in December to ensure sufficient generation capacity and avert high stages of rolling blackouts in winter. Eskom's generation executive Eric Shan Magam.
When you look at the summer profile, that's where we actually do most of our maintenance. Just going back to what happened over December this year and January, we did much more maintenance. It was intentional, based on also the funding that we've got. And if you really look at what maintenance in the second week of January, we peaked at 18% maintenance, which took away about 4% from the EAF.
And in election news. A report by the ANC Integrity Commission has recommended 3 out of 16 candidates referred to it for state capture-related allegations can stand as candidates despite the Integrity Commission having made adverse findings against them. The finalization of their appeals, reviews and other processes is still pending. The ANC briefed the media today where it publicized its provincial and national candidates list. ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula says the candidates will be allowed to stand for now.
Accordingly, the special NEC resolved that the above candidates should be allowed to stand as ANC candidates pending completion of their various outstanding appeal, review or disciplinary processes. Should they be elected, their positions as public representatives will be reassessed based on the outcomes of the process.
Tourism Minister Patricia de Lille says South Africa and Ghana are working hard to launch more direct flights between the two countries. Speaking to the SABC in Pretoria on the sidelines of the Bi-National Commission between the two countries, de Lille said they were trying to use tourism to boost economic growth.
We already signed a memorandum of agreement with Ghana in 2011, and we've put together a technical committee, and so we're implementing already joint promotion and marketing of tourism. We also do training in both countries. We have got study groups coming from both countries all the time. We sorted out the visa between South Africa and Ghana in April last year.
2 men accused of a racist-related attack at their case postponed by the Groblersdal Magistrates Court in Limpopo for further investigations. Peter Groenewald and his stepson, Stefan Greef, are facing charges of alleged assault of their 30-year-old employee Veneruru Kavari and setting dogs on him. The accused have been remanded in custody. Mahlatsi Paladi reports.
The accused made a brief appearance and their case was postponed to the 4th of April for further investigations. The state applied for postponement as the investigations have not been concluded. The state wants to obtain more statements from witnesses. Magistrate Bongi Mashalem granted the postponement. Outside the court, various political parties had gathered to show support to the victim. The accused were remanded in custody.
And finally, a Nigerian government agency says schools in at least 14 of the country's 36 states, as well as the capital Abuja, are at risk of attacks following the recent kidnapping of hundreds of students. The agency financing safe schools in Nigeria was formed after the abduction of girls from Chibok in Borno State in 2014. The BBC's Richard Hamilton reports.
The agency said security around school premises would be heightened and there would be more patrols. The spate of abductions worsened over the weekend as 15 students and 4 women were kidnapped from a school in Sokoto. Meanwhile, the army is still searching for hundreds of school children taken in the town of Kuriga on Thursday. 10 years on from the notorious Chibok abductions, despite promises from successive presidents, it seems Nigeria is unable to guarantee the safety of its school children.
Recapping the top story, Eskom says they are rolling blackouts in summer partly due to its planned maintenance. The Eskom team was briefing the media in Pretoria on the Energy Action Plan. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
In your sports this hour, Downs Eye bragging rights in prestigious Tshwane Derby, and Alcaraz eases past Ogier Alasime into India Welsh last 16. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Yes, very good afternoon. A crash on Joburg's entry going south at London Road. A big backlog into the Buccleuch interchange already. Coming off the N1 onto the N3, you are going to sit there. Lots load of mayonnaise on the R21 north at Pomona Road. Multiple lanes are closed. If you're leaving the airport, that's a heavy backlog, almost back as far as Four Trekker Road. You might want to hit an alternative route if you don't fancy traffic. And the R21 south towards the airport. The roadworks between Clayville and Tembisa are still there. So delays. So just make sure you've got some extra time to get through that on your way towards airport and flight connections. R34 north of Melmoth, still with that big truck crash recovery from this morning. The road is open, you can get through is my understanding, but there is still some queuing pressure out that way. And Cape Town, a breakdown on the N1 out of town, a stationary truck stuck before Marine Drive. That's pushing traffic into the CBD and back over the elevated freeway. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
TV licenses have developed a new GIS-linked national address database to ensure that we can communicate with all our valued license holders. We now have a visual of all licensed and unlicensed households nationwide in order to effectively communicate with you. We remind you to take note of our payment reminders and avoid paying penalties due to non-compliance or choosing to ignore your legal obligation to pay your license fees. We can communicate with all our license holders through cost-effective electronic methods, enabling us to collect license fees and continue to support the national broadcaster, the SABC, in accordance with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act No. 4 of 1999 as amended. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
And we will buy 500 cars, and we will buy 500 more, just to be the one who buys your car. We'll come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We buy cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
FC Cole will put their best foot forward to grab maximum points on home soil to run away from the danger zone. Meanwhile, RB Leipzig enjoys every moment in the top half and want to keep climbing to the top. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Experience the German style of the game. FC Köln versus RB Leipzig on Friday, 15 March at 9:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
10 past 4.
10 past 4.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It is 10 minutes after 4 o'clock. Coming up on the show in this hour, we speak to Dr. Ferrell Adams, who's Executive Manager of WaterCan, as residents in Johannesburg have been experiencing water shortages over the past weeks. And this is, of course, following the damage to the transformer that was struck by lightning, and there was another power outage at Aikenhof, and it has had a major impact on the city. So we're going to be speaking to Dr. Ferrell Adams around what some of the alternatives could be, but she says that they shouldn't be relying on water tankers. So that conversation is coming up. And then at 4:20, we speak to Lumka Olifant. A toddler was reunited with their family over the weekend after being repatriated from Senegal. The mother of the child was arrested and convicted in Senegal for drug trafficking, and now the department has intervened because following her arrest, she later on gave birth while still in prison, and now the Department of Social Development has intervened and repatriated the child back to South Africa. They were repatriated back over the weekend, and according to this report on Sowetan Live, there have been around 21 children who have been repatriated from foreign countries since 2014, according to Lumka Olifant. And these countries include Brazil, Malawi, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Ghana, the UK, Peru, Mauritius, Canada, as well as Tanzania. 0614-104-107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
#SAFMBTH.
Hi, Andrian. Just ask the IEC if they have the capacity to ensure that no one hacked the system in the accounting center, because that's where the problem is. The problem is not here at the voting stations, where they really change the result. It's the accounting center, whereby they hack the system and they just change the numbers. Instead of 1,000, they put 10,000 there, and no one will pick it up there. This is Jacob in Mokopane.
Hi, Jacob. I don't think that it's that simple. But anyway, there is a press briefing by the IEC. That press briefing is only happening at around 6 o'clock.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. I don't see any problem with having additional observers to the party. The only problem with, if you don't want them, then you have something to hide. Watch, it's always the same people who jump when there's a problem of this nature. First it's Ramaphosa, next it's Pandor. I suppose the next one will be Mantashe. The more the merrier, and then nobody has a complaint afterwards. Goodbye. Have a nice day to you and your listeners.
Well, let me ask you then, as a South African, perhaps maybe even as the electorate, somebody who's registered to vote, do you fear that the elections could be rigged? And what do you base this particular fear on? Because yes, you have a political party, and of course politics always at play. But do you believe that the elections could be rigged, and what do you base that fear on?
Good afternoon, Mr. Sampear and the listeners. I heard on the news that in Witbank there is a student that unfortunately died. They say there was a scuffle between students and then police intervened. So it's suspected that maybe the police. So, but my question is, I heard over the news that an inquest docket has been opened. So if someone died as a result of an altercation or confrontation, how can it be an inquest? Because for me, an inquest is when then maybe someone committed suicide. So why is this not a homicide or a murder case?
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It's 15 minutes after 4 o'clock. We're in conversation next with Dr. Ferrell Adams, Executive Manager of WaterCan. Residents in Johannesburg have been experiencing water shortages over the past week due to a lightning that struck a city power transformer and damaged the Aikenhof system overseen by Rand Water. Our next guest is calling for officials to not normalize the use of water tankers as a long-term solution. To unpack what impact this crisis will have on residents in the middle of a heat wave, we speak to Dr. Adams. Dr. Adams, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. First of all, before we speak about what it is that residents can do, but what about the crisis itself? What's your assessment of the level of the crisis that we have in the city of Johannesburg?
So good afternoon, Aldrin, and thank you for having me on your show. And I think that we're having right now is indicative of years and years of a lack of focus on maintenance. Governments and specifically local governments, we started to fix everything that we need to fix. So what has been maybe.
Okay, Dr. Adams, let's see if we can get you on a different line. That line there, not too clear, 0614-104107. And you can also drop in X at Aldrin Sampear. So earlier on today, also speaking to the DG of water, and I asked him about the water leaks program. Remember the water leaks program? The war on water leaks? We spent 3 billion rand on that program, and in that interview he said unfortunately it was poorly planned, because here's the money that we've spent on the war on leaks, and now we are being told that leaks are actually still part of a major problem in the country. And he estimates that in eThekwini, for instance, they lose up to close to 50% of the clean drinkable water through these leaks. Nearly 50% of that water, which has been purified, just disappearing because of the leaks, and of course also due to the lack of maintenance. Let's try that line again to Dr. Adams. Dr. Adams, you were still speaking to us about the level of the crisis that we have in the city of Joburg, and speaking about the lack of maintenance.
Yes, thank you. Sorry for that. Yes, lack of maintenance over a decade. And so, of course, you've got very old pipes and infrastructure in Johannesburg that is a problem and needs repair and constant attention. The other thing is that we need to consider that in a place like Aikenhof, which the pump station was hit by lightning, surely we need to have the mechanisms in place to protect it from those kind of outages, because that outage itself led to almost 300,000 people across the city that had no water.
So what should the intervention be now?
I think that the intervention should be on a few levels. One is that the local government, City of Joburg, Rand Water, Joburg Water, need to constantly speak to each other and communicate adequately with people, so that we know that people are angry. But then just, don't treat us as if we're just a pain or an irritation. Share with us exactly what is going on so that we have an honest response. And we've seen that from the national department, where they would tell you straight out, this is the problem and this is how we're dealing with it. That's what we want. That's number one. Number two is we are saying that people must not lose hope, in that give up and say, well, this is just how it is. No, keep reporting, keep the local government officials on their toes. We need to, as ordinary people and residents in Johannesburg, come together to actually hold people accountable, and that's what we have to do. We cannot have our schools and clinics and businesses and ordinary life being affected by having no.
Oh, okay. Dr. Adams, can you still hear us?
Me?
Oh, yeah, we keep on losing you there, Dr. Adams. Let's try again. Dr. Adams, can you hear us? Okay, no, we've lost her. Dr. Farrell Adams is the executive manager of WaterCan. 0614-104107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Let's take your voice notes.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
No, you are making mistake, Aldrin. Remember, ANC has got representative in branches, and the assumption is that branches have made nomination from the branches to the regions to the province and going up. If it's them who made those nominations, then they should know who are the people they nominated. So ANC is different because of its nomination criteria. So the nomination comes from the branch. Remember, ANC will tell you that the most important part of the ANC organization are the branches. So if the branches have got a nomination, after all, those nominations after the NEC were supposed to be fed back to the branches before they are sent to the IEC to make sure that the branch are happy with the list and the people they've produced. So transparency and governance here, Aldrin. Branches are good, they say, and they must know who they nominated.
I don't understand. I don't understand what you protesting here. What is it that I'm wrong on? Yeah.
Afternoon, Aldrin. It's Vogan here from Durban. My concern with the DA writing to the US is the fact that the US cannot be trusted. They displayed how untrustworthy they are with democracy just a few years ago when there was almost a violent takeover of government and a concerted effort by their president then to rig the elections. So how can you trust them to assist in observing the election? People who almost took over the government violently in their own country. It doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Adrian. Good afternoon. Yes, about American to come and observe the election. Yes, they can come because they were election in Angola, it was not free and fair, but Ramaphosa say no, it was free and fair. There was election in Zimbabwe, it was not free and fair. Ramaphosa is saying no, it was free and fair. Yes, we want outside observers to come and check the election. Thank you, Anthony from Rustenburg.
Okay, 0614-104-107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 000 2032.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
This DA requesting the help of the United States. Where have I seen this before? Oh yeah, I've seen it in Iraq. We've seen it in Vietnam. We've now seen it in Congo. We've seen it in the Middle East. We've seen it, where else? Sure, within the United States of America. I'm sorry, when these guys are coming to town on a ticket of help, it's not usually about the victim, it's about what they can get out of it.
Well, just quickly want to quote again from the letter. It says that, where is it now? We know that as the geopolitical sands continue to shift, those of us invested in the political values of freedom, tolerance, peace, and democracy must do everything in our power to stem the rising tides of populism, oppression, as well as tyranny. There is, okay, where's this? There's another part that I was looking for in this letter. Okay, I'm going to try and find it in reference to allegiance to other countries. Yeah, I'm going to see if I can try and find that part in this letter that has been sent to Anthony Blinken through Ruben Brickety, who is the U.S. ambassador to South Africa. 0614-104-107.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
Okay, let's go to Anonymous, who's joining us from Klerksdorp. Good afternoon.
Hi, Aldrin. This letter to the Americans and the DA just shows that we cannot vote for the DA. There is a country that is selling weapons to a state that is slaughtering innocent women and children in Gaza. Now you ask such people to help you with democracy and freedom. How can we do that? Thank you.
For you, just based on that particular point, you believe that the USA could not be trusted?
Yeah, I mean, how can they be trusted with assisting with democracy and free and fair?
Okay, that is anonymous there from Klerksdorp, 0614-104-107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Okay, I found that paragraph in the letter. It says, "It is our contention that as the ruling elite grow more desperate to retain electoral support ahead of the upcoming elections, they may be willing to put their narrow political interest ahead of our country's broader interest and sacred constitutional values. Here we are witnessing an increasing willingness by the ANC to forge alliances with malign international actors whose regimes are characterized by tyranny, terror, and oppression." Which regimes are those? Which regimes do you think the Democratic Alliance is referring here to? I'm going to repeat that. Here we are witnessing an increasing willingness by the ANC to forge alliance with malign international actors whose regimes are characterized by tyranny, terror, and oppression. And remember the interview that we had last week with the representative from the US Embassy, and we spoke about, yes, there are differences. There are parts where the ANC or where the government of South Africa disagrees with the government of the USA in terms of the approach, on issues like geopolitics, of course, what's happening in Russia and what's happening in Gaza as well, or what's happening in Ukraine as well. And I wonder whether that particular line is actually in reference to knowing that there are concerns that the USA has and around decisions that the ANC-led government has taken when it comes to geopolitics. And if the reference to the malign international actors actually includes the likes of Russia. Because remember that the US has also accused Russia of interfering in their elections. So, is the Democratic Alliance making a similar claim here to say that they fear that Russia could interfere with our elections? Let's quickly speak to Mwele, who's joining us from Fourways. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. How's it?
Yeah, I'm good. I want to talk about this program that we were talking about now, War on Leaks. Yes, I was part of that program on phase 2.
Okay.
Yeah, that program, I think it was sabotage, because I remember in 2016, we were doing trainings, so they told us, okay, now the president is going, Jacob Zuma, so they are going to introduce a new program called YES. We better apply on that program. So we have a lot of questions, okay, so because according to the law, if you start apprenticeship with a company, you must finish with it. So they told us that no, is politically motivated. There's no way you're gonna complete this program. But fortunately, on our phases too, we managed to complete. But we got trainings for water leaks and everything. I trained at an artisan. Then when we finished, we were told that okay, we shouldn't apply for a job anyway. We're gonna get jobs from government and municipalities.
Yeah.
I remember we went to the municipalities and write our names and gave them the certificate. We didn't get a call back. The call that we got was from private companies hiring us. I got a call from Rainwater Direct Company, and then I got there, and I worked there, and then I got a call, I went to work for Engo. But with those certificates, a lot of people wanted to work for government. Especially now, of course, we're from rural areas.
Yeah,
we wanted to work, but the municipality stopped us.
Actually, and I don't know what you can add to this, Mweli. When I was speaking to the DG, he did say that unfortunately the municipalities failed to employ these people. What's your experience?
My experience, because I was part of the people who was on the organization that was leading the group. So when we went to the municipality, they did hire people, but none was from water or leaks. So we don't know how they started hiring, but
but at least you personally you gained a skill, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and then later on got a job.
Yes, I'm working. Good job, but I think the program was about fixing the water leak so that people can get water, but it didn't bear any fruits. So my concern was like, why don't the municipality go back and employ those people? Because they can take them back so that they can fix those water leaks. We have a lot of problems in a rural area.
Mweli, thank you so much for that call. Mweli there from Fourways. Were you part of the beneficiaries of the War on Leaks program? 3 billion rand that we spent on that, and the DG saying that it was a failed plan. It wasn't planned properly. A minute after 4:30, time for the news headlines.
Good afternoon, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the Information Regulator says it has given the Independent Electoral Commission 5 days to respond to the information notice it directed to the Commission. This after the regulator confirmed it received 2 notifications from the IEC regarding a security breach that saw the unlawful release of candidate lists for the ANC and Mkhonto Sizwe party at the weekend. Eskom says they are rolling blackouts in summer partly due to its planned maintenance. The Eskom team was briefing the media in Pretoria on the Energy Action Plan. And Fiji has recorded a spike in the number of people diagnosed with HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. Greg House will have details on these and other stories at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Reminder, if you're leaving the airport at Joburg on the R21 heading to Tembisa or Pretoria, it's a heavy backlog, a lost load of mayonnaise on the highway today. Multiple lanes are closed near Pomona Road, and traffic's all the way back to the R24 Albertina Sisulu Highway and looking very busy. The other story we're watching is just unfolding. A small tanker has overturned on the N3 Pietermaritzburg bound between Linfield Park and Ashburton. The N3 going west is currently closed across all lanes. Big backlog of traffic if you are on your way to Pietermaritzburg from Linfield Park. That's about the backlog point at this stage. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Doming Kapele.
In your sports this hour, starting things off with football, Mamelodi Sundowns will be eyeing bragging rights of the city of Tshwane this week as the high-flying Brazilians prepare to host SuperSport United at Loftus Versfeld in the DStv Premiership tomorrow evening. Following consecutive draws against Polokwane City and Orlando Pirates respectively, wins against Amazulu and Chipa United saw Sundowns record back-to-back wins in the league for the first time since the 13th of December 2023. More impressively, Downs are yet to lose a game in the 2023-24 DStv Premiership campaign and have amassed 45 points from 17 games played so far as they sit comfortably in a pole position, while Rulani's side played 2 games less than their upcoming opponent. Gavin Hunt and company trail Sundowns by 13 points in 4th place. Meanwhile, Kaizer Chiefs acting coach Kevin Johnson says that he was surprised by the missiles that were thrown on the pitch during the Soweto derby against Orlando Pirates. Various objects were thrown from the grandstand just behind the Chiefs bench as police entered the pitch and were forced to form a barricade behind the technical team and players. However, rather than aimed at the coach, it was understood that it was desperate and angry Chiefs fans reacting to a Pirates ball boy withholding the ball and delaying the resumption of play, while Amakosi were trailing 3-2 in the second half.
Were they throwing stuff on the field? Hey, gents, I didn't see her. You know, when you lose a game of this magnitude and you And you just worry about, I didn't see, did they throw stuff, Mr. Gleeson?
I'm sure you saw them trying stuff, sir.
No, I didn't. I didn't see any guys. Maybe I saw one bottle or two, but I did see police. And maybe I don't know who they're protecting, me or the players. But, yeah, we want to say thank you to them for coming out. Don't throw stones, guys. It doesn't work.
Still staying with football, Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola says that their 1-1 draw with Liverpool in the Premier League clash at Anfield defines what both clubs have been for many, many years. The result means that Liverpool remain in second place with City behind them in third, Arsenal sitting top of the pile above Liverpool on goal difference.
I think it is a game that defines what we have been both clubs for many, many years. All the games have been quite similar, so moments for it, we start really well. Even before the goal, we had chances with a huge personality. I think it was the first half, and after it's difficult because today they have with Endo and McAllister, they have an extra passes, they have quality to play. Like before it was maybe more direct, without losing how direct they can be in transition, but we made transition as well. And in the second half, we stuck in the half time in that stadium. If you want something to defend, something like you won in the first half, you don't have chance. You have to play and play and play. And we give away the penalty, and after, sooner or later, in this stadium, you have 50, 20 minutes. You have to try as less as possible. Like looks like a tsunami. Like, oh my God, come for everywhere. You have the ball and everything.
In tennis, reigning Grand Slam champions Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz turned in dominating performances yesterday to roll into the fourth round of the ATP WTA Indian Wells Masters. The two hottest young rackets in the sport showed no mercy in quick fire victories, with Australian Open champion Sinner overwhelming Jan-Lennard Struff 6-3 and 6-4.
I think he didn't make points with the serves. I think he lives with his serves. I put it almost every return in and playing the point. You know, I feel or I felt like I'm better than him. You know, from the baseline, putting some good points on the court, and I think I move well. I play aggressive with less mistakes, and I think it was almost a perfect match for me.
Ending things off with golf, Scotty Scheffler says that he was proud of his performance as he claimed the special Arnold Palmer Invitational in Florida on the PGA Tour, his first victory in 2024. The 27-year-old claimed his 7th PGA Tour title and looks in ominous form ahead of the next Masters at Augusta, as 6 birdies in a flawless closing 66 turned the final round into a procession. Now, Scheffler had started the day level with the island's Shane Lowry on 9 under par, but was soon 3 clear as Lowry made a bogey start and Scheffler birdied the first from 13 feet. On that note, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour. For SAFM Sport, I'm Dumin Kapele.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And it's time for a market update with Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. So tell us about Met-Air's yearly trading update and also looking at ABSA's lackluster annual results.
Afternoon to you, Aldrin, and to the listeners. Remember, Met-Air, they manufacture, distribute, and retail products for energy storage and automotive components. And conditions, Aldrin, remained challenging because of high interest and inflation rates impacted financial performance. And in South Africa, supply chain disruptions exacerbated by the failing rail and port infrastructure created delays and drove increased costs due to the resulting need for them to start using emergency air freight, and to mitigate this, they had to maintain higher levels of safety stock to support original equipment manufacturers. And added to this, geopolitical tensions, adverse economic policies in Turkey and Europe impacted the group's international battery business, but they expect profits as headline earnings per share of R1.40 from a loss of 17 cents a share, and hence the share price is up nicely 25%. ABSA, they are gross loans and advances up 5%, deposits up 8%, and net interest income up 12.5%, but profit as headline earnings per share up a mere 0.6%, and dividend per share up 5%. Other poor economic conditions, that is your high inflation and high interest rates, local load shedding, logistical bottlenecks, are taking a toll on both retail and small businesses customers, leading to defaults. Hence, ABSA had to increase their credit impairment by a whopping 13%, and that's an indication of higher for longer interest rates that are starting to bite them. And the bank's net income fell 1.8%. The share price is down 4% as we're talking now.
And tell us about local and international market developments.
We saw data that was released today showing that Japan was not in fact in a recession after economic growth was revised up, and there are rumors that the Bank of Japan could end its yield curve control policies as soon as next week. And Chinese price data out over the weekend showed a welcome bounce to inflation, though producer prices remained in deflation, and the Chinese struggling real estate developers won't be getting a major bailout. Those that are seriously insolvent and have lost the ability to operate, those that must go bankrupt should go bankrupt. I guess that's tough love. And the start of the week that will test the market's conviction that the U.S. is moving closer to dialing back its inflation fight. Market participants will use tomorrow's U.S. inflation data to predict when the Fed will start lowering interest rates. And remember, it's happening a month after the stock market was rattled by a worse than expected inflation report, and equities are retreating, with traders looking for more clues on whether the recent uptick in consumer prices was just a blip or not. And locally, our Q1 building confidence fell to 27 points after going up to almost an 8-year high of 43 in Q4 of 2023, and that's an indication of dissatisfaction with prevailing business conditions. And the steelmaking ingredient iron ore dropped 7% after disappointing demand coming out of China left the market with lots of inventories, and then the slow demand concerns from China negatively impacted oil prices. But the lingering geopolitical risks surrounding the Middle East and Russia tried offering a cushion, which was not enough. Brent crude is down 0.8% at $81 a barrel, and the yellow metals rally hitting a pause, and that's ahead of that U.S. inflation data. As we're talking, gold is flat at 2,150, and platinum is up 2% at 930. We saw the Dow and S&P opening down 0.5%, the DAX is down 0.6%, FTSE is down 0.3%, just like the CAC, and the JS is up. It's down 0.5%, with our resources down 1.5%. Our industrials are down 0.1%, but our financials are flat. Fortunately, the rand fell to 0.4%. It's 18.63 to the US dollar, 23.93 to the pound, and 20.38 to the euro.
Thank you so much. That's Markwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Markwe Fund Managers. We're taking your calls on 086 000 2032 and your voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Business owners, don't waste your time searching for an employee that has it all. They do not exist. But I will tell you what does exist. The Kia K2700 Workhorse. It's versatile, powerful, and reliable. It also arrives on time every day. Plus, you get 40,000 Rand cashback. It's the business partner you've been waiting for. Visit your nearest Kia dealership for a test drive. T's and C's apply.
Kia. Movement that inspires.
Is there such a thing as a favorable draw in football? The moment to find out is almost here. Top 8 CAF Confederation Cup quarterfinalists can't wait to find out who their opponents are. Group winners USM Alger, Samalek FC, Dreams FC, and RSB Bakane will be drawn against group runners-up Modern Future, Abu Salem, Rivers United, and Stade Malien. Witness the quarterfinals draw of the CAF Confederation Cup 2023-2024 season on Tuesday, 12 March at 2 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Prince Ndiweni, incredible story about the 18-year-old expecting, as you say, to be competing in Formula 2. He'd taken pole position, all of a sudden getting thrust into the spotlight.
Exactly, that's the general sentiment. Hardly any pressure for him. I mean, at the moment he's sitting in the elimination zone in 11th place. But yeah, for him it's a learning curve, massive opportunity for him to impress and get his name etched in the minds of the entire community, let alone Ferrari, who obviously they've got a succession plan, always have a succession plan in mind for the short and the long game. They're definitely going to know his name after this weekend if he plays his cards right and make sure just to have a clean racing weekend. I think that's the best thing.
Top Sport on SAFM. You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
15 minutes now before 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. We're taking your voice notes on 0614-104-107. Just got an X here from Khalib Kachala, remember, former member of the Democratic Alliance who resigned early in the year, former Deputy Shadow Minister of Trade and Industry. I find his perspective really interesting. I wonder what you read into it. He says, this bizarre move by Steenhuisen and Powell, advised no doubt by Riva Levinson, paints South Africa as a rogue state and sets the scene for U.S. intervention. It won't happen, but it doesn't take away from the insanity of the DA's appeal from these cowboys, all hat and no sizzle. And mind you that Riva Levinson is the owner of that PR firm in the US to help boost South Africa, or rather boost the DA's relations or interest, the DA's interest in the USA. So remember, I think it was last year in November that we had the story about the DA appointing a PR firm in the US to help promote the DA's interest in the US. And when you read into what Khalib Kachala is saying here, you shouldn't be reading these things in isolation. One end, you have this letter that has come from the Democratic Alliance, specifically to the U.S. Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, and I guess also casting doubt on the ability of the IEC to ensure that the elections are credible, and also the fear of foreign intervention or interference in our elections. And then you have the reference that Khalib Kachala is making to Riva Levinson, who is paid, according to this report in the City Press, around 300,000 rand per month to promote the party's interests in the USA. 0614-104-107.
Afternoon, Aldrin. You know this thing of the DA inviting the US to come and fiddle with our elections. I think the IEC should expel or ban the DA from taking part on the elections. Keep it from Jamestown.
ANC won't rig their votes. Why now do they think that they will rig their votes? The small parties, man, they don't understand the situation that we are in. ANC is powerful, man. Even if they can bring the inspectors from another country, still the same Gafana will beat them. Stop it.
The only talk radio afternoon drive show that makes sense. Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear, right here on SAFM.
It is 12 minutes now before 5 o'clock. In conversation next with the spokesperson for the Department of Social Development, Lumka Olifant. A toddler has been reunited with their family over the weekend after a repatriation from Senegal to South Africa. The mother of the baby is serving a prison sentence in Senegal on charges of drug trafficking and gave birth days after her arrest. Due to the Children's Act of 2005, the Department of Social Development is obligated to assist the children in distress and place them in a conducive environment for their development. Now we speak to Lumka Olifant, who is the spokesperson for the Department of Social Development. Lumka, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you, listeners, and thank you for having us.
So tell us about the story of this toddler who has now been reunited with their family in the Eastern Cape.
As you explained in your intro, is that we are obligated by the Children's Act, and also because we are signatories to international conventions like the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child and the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, that we have to make sure that firstly every child within the borders of the country is cared for and protected, and also that when we have our children who are in distress in foreign countries, we need to make sure that they are connected with their families. So this is why, firstly, we do the things that we do as custodians of the Children's Act. Then we were notified by DERCO, because we've got embassies, as you know, around the country, that they have been notified by the Senegalese government that there is a case of a woman who is South African who has a baby in one of their prisons in Dakar. And then because of these obligations that we have, then they started doing the processes of making sure that they get in touch with social development, and we go and do investigations where the mother has nominated who can look after her child while she is still serving that prison sentence. The mother is from the Eastern Cape, and we had to then, the Department of Social Development in the Eastern Cape, had to go and assess and make sure that when we take the child and come, and the child is in the country where she has nominated a parent to look after her baby, are they willing, number one, and secondly, is the environment that we're taking the child to conducive? And then after that, then the repatriation started, and all the other government departments that are in the child protection system then kick in.
What condition did you find the mother in, as well as the child?
I think let's stick to the child, because our conversation is about the child.
Okay.
And this is where our interest is. And in all the papers that I've read, that between all the departments, we've just been told exactly what you've told, or that I've told you. But then the issues around the child in prison, that's not a conducive environment for a child. What do we do when the child gets to the country? So the center of the story and the lifeline is about this child, that when the mother comes back, she will be able to get her child back, and, they would have received the necessary education, health, and everything else. But it is standard procedure, Aldrin, that when we get a child from another country, when they come into the country, Home Affairs would have done their part, social development would have done their part. The Department of Health will also have to make sure that the child is healthy, and all the vaccinations are done and up to date, and then social development continues with psychosocial support. Justice then comes in with making sure that we legalize the foster system, the foster care of the child, and giving legally the child to the nominated parents, and social development would have made a recommendation to the court. And then, as you know, when there's a foster care case, there's a part whereby government is saying to that family, we know that you are looking after this child on behalf of government, and then SAFA kicks in after that, and then the other, education as the child goes. Yeah.
Okay, just a final one. Again, the Times Live reporting that there have been at least 21 children who have been repatriated since 2015. Are these all cases relating to their parents being incarcerated, convicted, or are there different circumstances to some of these cases?
The ones that I can tell you, and I've looked at, especially from the South American countries, you'll find that it's drug related. And then last year there was another case of child abandonment, and the child not being looked after by the mother, who had left here for the UK, and the UK government then spoke to us. And last year in December, the child then came back to the country and was fostered in the country. So these cases differ. But when I'm looking at the list and the cases that I've seen, the majority of them would be these ones that have to do with drugs.
Thank you so much for your time. Lumka Olifant is the spokesperson for the Department of Social Development. 0614-104-107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
#SAFMBTH.
Let's take your voice notes on 0614-104-107.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. The former IEC boss, he says he's proud because they observed some elections in Africa. He is even indicating that they were in somewhere in Gambia, I think. What is that he's so proud of? I wouldn't be proud of that, because we know what is happening in Africa. Just recently, Zimbabwe had a similar problem, and they were there. So I don't believe him. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to that's it. Okay. Oh, it's my namesake. It's been a while. Aldrin, good afternoon. Hi, Aldrin. Good afternoon.
Hi.
I'm good. How are you doing, Makwir?
Hi, okay, man. Yes, thanks, Alvin. I just want to say, I think the elections for this year will be free and fair. As always, since 1994, we've been voting, and there's never been any violence about elections. So your guests have said a mouthful, about the do's and don'ts. So the DS letter, to me, it's like a provocation, towards the Constitution, but same as the MK, threatening violence and so on. But, so, I'm just confused at the moment. Like, it looks like everybody is hungry for power. How many parties have we have now on the ballot paper? Imagine an old lady, counting parties from 1 to 300 or over that. It's going to be a problem. So I think there's a problem here with our society. People are causing confusion, and somehow it's a strategy also to tear apart the ANC. Like everybody, all the parties, they are not focusing on how their manifestos are going to be implemented. They are focusing on, we want the ANC down, we want to put that
but
down.
But that's elections, isn't it? That's the nature of elections.
So, but for now, in terms of the DS letter, I think I agree with the Minister Pando. She said it all. The president has stirred himself up in terms of how it should be done.
Okay.
Elections, so they can invite anybody. I don't have a problem with any international, as long as it is done under state control, not just a party from a different angle.
Okay, thank you so much, Aldrin, there from Limpopo. And also, for me, it's also based on what's the premise of requesting for this observer mission. Of course, Teretzelani has a different take on it. Again, the Democratic Alliance makes reference to the MK Party. It says that furthermore, the recent establishment of the MK Party, led by former President Jacob Zuma, is set to gain significant support in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, which may have concomitant implications at a national level. We are of the view that MK poses a substantive risk to the continued peaceful nature of our political discourse as a nation. So the Democratic Alliance has now moved away from the EFF. The focus is now on the MK Party. Let's quickly go to Billy, who's joining us from Limpopo. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Aldrin.
Sure, welcome.
Yes, I believe that the Democratic Alliance is spot on, because really we see a lot of some challenges down on the ground. For example, here in Limpopo, every weekend there are cattle which are delivered to traditional leaders, and sometimes they are given cars There are ambulances being distributed unnecessarily. So we are saying these elections will really not be free and fair because the ANC is now under siege.
But what do you base this? It won't be free and fair on. What do you base that on?
Because there is an assessment that it has not performed well. Now, given that, it's like by its own admission, the ANC is saying that in terms of their NDP, it says that we have not performed well. Now, the people want a change on the ground, and therefore, there must be change. And
but you're not getting to why do you think that the ANC will not relinquish power? If they've relinquished power in the Western Cape, they've relinquished power in the various municipalities, what is it that you're relying on that says to you that they will not relinquish power? What is that thing?
It's because it has supported Tehran in Zimbabwe. It's supporting Russia. What it's doing.
Well, the ANC has always supported Zimbabwe.
Yeah, and Zimbabwe.
And they've always relinquished power.
Where?
Yeah? How many municipalities do you know that have lost power?
There are municipalities where the ANC has actually obstructed other parties to take over. You know that.
Okay. That's Billy there from Limpopo. I was really hoping that you'll give us some sort of evidence that we can try and work on around why you believe that the ANC would not relinquish power. But of course, the difference with these also is that here we're speaking about a national election. The last time in the national election that the ANC lost the Western Cape, they relinquished power. With the local government elections, it's a bit different. We're speaking about local government, but even their power was relinquished. There has been allegations of vote rigging that was made by the EFF as well. It's a minute after 5 o'clock. Time for the news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Information regulator speaks on security breach and heatwave warning for Gauteng. Good day to you. The information regulator says given the IEC 5 days to respond to the information notice it directed to the Electoral Commission, this after the regulator confirmed that it received 2 notifications from the IEC regarding a security breach that saw the unlawful release of candidate lists for the ANC and MK parties at the weekend. Following this incident, the Electoral Commission has assured the nation that they're probing the matter. The Information Regulator's executive overseeing the Protection of Personal Information Act is Seppo Bukanyo.
Where there is a security compromise of this magnitude, we also want to establish certain things. And one of the things that we want to establish are the security measures, whether the organization in question, that is the IEC, the responsible party, had taken appropriate and reasonable and technical measures to ensure to prevent any unlawful access to the personal information in question. You would know that our section 19 of POPIA says that any responsible party that is in possession of personal information must ensure that it secures the integrity of such information.
Eskom says they're rolling blackouts in summer partly due to its plant maintenance. The Eskom team briefed the media in Pretoria on the Energy Action Plan. The team says the power utility undertook planned maintenance in December to ensure sufficient generation capacity and avert higher stages of rolling blackouts in winter. Eskom's Eric Shinmagam.
When you look at the summer profile, that's where we actually do most of our maintenance. Just going back to what happened over December this year and January, we did much more maintenance. It was intentional based on also the funding that we've got. And if you really look at what maintenance in the second week of January, we peaked at 18% maintenance, which took away about 4% from the EAF.
The Judicial Conduct Tribunal has denied a request by a suspended judge, Tinswalo Nana Makubele, to have proceedings adjourned until Wednesday. She alleges that the witness she was meant to call before the tribunal has changed her version of events. Makubele is appearing before the tribunal in a misconduct probe lodged by civic organisation Unite Behind, which alleges she violated the separation of powers principle by being both a judge and the chairperson of PRASA. Makubele says she would like to reopen her evidence and further present documents. Tribunal chairperson, retired Judge Ahmed Yapi.
The tribunal have discussed the request for an adjournment. Considering the grounds presented to this tribunal, it is the unanimous view of the tribunal we proceed today and hear the witness on not depending upon Judge Makubela's attitude towards the witness, but an adjournment will just further delay the matter. So far as the tribunal is concerned, the request for a further adjournment is denied.
Johannesburg Emergency Services have warned residents of the city to remain hydrated and to avoid spending too much time in the sun during this heat wave. The Weather Service has warned of high temperatures peaking at more than 37 degrees Celsius across Gauteng and different parts of the country until Wednesday. Emergency Services spokesperson Robert Malotsi.
Residents are urged to stay hydrated, drink lots of water, try and avoid direct sunlight. Those who are working directly into the sunlight to take regular breaks. Exposure to these extremely hot temperatures can lead to heat exhaustion, heat cramps, and also exposure to extremely hot temperatures can also lead to heat stroke.
Finally, Fiji's recorded a spike in the number of people diagnosed with HIV. The Pacific Islands Health Minister says there's a link between drug use and the spread of the virus. The BBC's Celia Hatton reports.
The island's health minister, Antonio Lalabalavu, announced that 415 people were recorded with HIV in December, up from 245 the year before. Dr. Lalabalavu said there was a link between intravenous drug use and the spread of the virus. He blamed a practice called Bluetoothing, in which drug takers withdraw their blood after injecting drugs and then inject their blood into a second person.
Top story. The information regulator says given the IEC 5 days to respond to the information notice it directed to the Electoral Commission. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khus.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Shangase and Reiniger lead Team South Africa to Women's T20 final at African Games, and Bafana Bafana head coach Hugo Broos to meet PSL chairman this week. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And still very heavy leaving Joburg's OR Tambo International Airport on the R21 North. It's a lost load of mayonnaise that happened earlier today all over the highway just by Pomona Road. Multiple lanes are still closed, and the backlog is now beyond Ford Tracker Road and sneaking back onto the R24 eastbound carriageway. So just after Barber Road on the 24 is where you'll hit that queue, and you don't get out of it until you got well past the airport up towards Pomona Road. You might want to avoid that one by the look of it. The N3 going south, a crash at London Road in the Alex area. Traffic there parking back through Buccleuch and halfway back towards Allendale Road on the N1 south, so that's a big queue as well. Heading out of Durban, very slow from Pavilion Mall towards Paradise Valley through the roadworks. It gets even heavier between Linfield Park and Ashburton. In fact, both sides queuing now. A small tanker has crashed at the Central Reservation between Linfield Park and Ashburton, so if you're Pietermaritzburg bound or Durban bound, there's now heavy queues both directions. Cape Town, the M5 going north is quite slow. Up the Black River Parkway, queues up towards Kuiper, going to change, and part of Kloof Road through the bottom of Sea Point at Fresnay has been closed due to a truck crash. That's just seeing a lot of traffic having to divert onto local routes, causing jams in the central Sea Point area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Good afternoon. This is your captain speaking with just a little flight information. We're flying at an altitude of 37,000 feet and our airspeed is 400 miles an hour.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to BTH Airline. I'm your co-pilot, Aldrin Sampear, and I'm with you from 3 to 6, flying you through the turbulent airwaves. But the landing will be smooth.
So just sit back and relax and enjoy the rest of the flight.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It is 9 minutes after 5 o'clock. Coming up on the show in this hour, we're in conversation with Dr. Greg Mills, who's the Executive Director of the Brandhurst Foundation, following the poll that they had, which indicates that the ANC could lose its electoral base to below 50% to around 39%. This is at a national level. And the poll also indicated that the MK party in KwaZulu-Natal could surpass the ANC, becoming the biggest political party in KZN, surpassing all other political parties actually, including the EFF, the Democratic Alliance, as well as the IFP. So we'll be speaking to them about that particular poll. Dr. Greg Mills will be joining us for that. And still staying with things related to the upcoming elections, we speak to Dr. Khoshi Litlape, who is now a member of Action SA. You may remember him as the former chair of the South African Health Professional Council. So he'll be joining us in the next short while. 0614-104107, and can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
Hi Aldrin, this is Ryan from Durban here. Just with regards to the DA's letter to the US, personally I don't see much wrong in it at all. They just want an impartial election, and there are a few nefarious actors sniffing around like Russia and China, and you don't know what their involvement's going to be. Also with regards to MK promising violence if they don't get their 2/3 majority, I just think that the more observers, the merrier, and then the less rubbish that will happen during election time. I don't think we should look too far into it. But yeah, that's just my view, and I'm pretty sure all will go well. But yeah, I think people are just trying to use this to bash the DA and to say that there's some kind of agenda. Thank you.
Yeah, but remember, once again, it's the DA that hired a PR firm in the US to advance its interest in the US. And that's the reason why people will question these type of things. But then also the premise of asking for this, for an electoral observation. So again, I'm going to quote what they say. Furthermore, the recent establishment of the MK party, led by former President Jacob Zuma, set to gain significant support in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, which may have concomitant implications at a national level. We are of the view that the MK party poses a substantive risk to the continued peaceful nature of our political discourse as a nation. What is this based on? What is this based on? The fluid nature of the current political landscape thus presents both significant risk as well as opportunities. We know that as the geopolitical sands continue to shift, those of us invested in the political values of freedom, tolerance, peace, and democracy must do everything in our power to stem the rising tides of populism, oppression, as well as tyranny. So what is it that you read into this? And also, again, considering the U.S.-Russia relations, the reference here in the letter being made, here we are witnessing an increasing willingness by the ANC to forge alliances with the malign international actors whose regimes are characterized by tyranny, terror, and oppression. Perhaps maybe the DA has some intelligence that they have that there is a risk that Russia could interfere with the country's elections. What is that information, again, that they are relying on? 0614-104107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Let's go to Kandisa, who's joining us from Matlosana. Good evening.
Evening, Aldrin. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
Now, good, Aldrin. Aldrin, man, look. You know, the way I love ANC, I end up losing a focus now. You see, I'm going to join people who are not going to participate in elections in Matlosana. Because our issue is very simple. We raise issues that concern us as communities of Matlosana. This municipality of Matlosana, there's a lot of issues that are happening elsewhere. It was issue of the CFO who were arrested for money laundering.
Yeah.
Now, when I check in the social media, there's issue again of MM of Matlosana, who appointed a company of attorneys. And apparently, according to social media, they say that those lawyers, they paid him, they bought him a house of 3 point something million. And then he put that house in a trust. Now, how can you have politicians in Matlosana, members of ANC, councillors of ANC, who are fighting amongst themselves to say who must be a director, and other groups say they want other directors. You see, how can you vote? You have people like Council of Matlosana. You see, when you raise these things in ANC, you become a victim. You see, Aldrin?
Yeah.
It is unfair, really, because people, they want service delivered. You see, and now I have to go door to door to say to people, go and vote ANC, whereas people are crying about the city of Matlosana, Makanse. Every day, there are a lot of issues. If I can send you documents, you can see a lot of issues.
All right.
There are issues of landfill.
But you're going to continue to support. You're going to continue to support. You're going to continue to support the ANC.
Look, Aldrin, I'm a member of ANC, but because of this behavior of people of Matlosana, I want vote. I'm not going to waste my time and vote people who are not caring our people.
Why don't you vote for another political party then?
Look, Aldrin, I'm not going to vote for any political party.
Do you think that you abstaining from the elections will get the ANC to put its house in order? Or boycotting the elections?
Let me tell you, if they can take a decision now to speak to give a direction in this municipality, I don't have a problem to vote ANC. ANC don't have any problem. Problem are people who are electing them.
Okay.
They think
but they come through the ANC itself. They come through the ANC and the ANC processes. But Kandisa there from Matlosana, diehard ANC member as well as supporter, but because of the lack of services as well as what's happening in his municipality, he's amongst the people who would be boycotting the elections. 0614-104-107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086-000-2032.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It is now 17 minutes after 5 o'clock. We're in conversation next with Dr. Greg Mills, Executive Director of the Brandhurst Foundation. A national survey that they have conducted has revealed that the African National Congress support will fall to around 39%. The Democratic Alliance gains support to 27%. The Economic Freedom Fighters will fall to 10%. And that the new kids on the block, Umkhonto Wesizwe, will get support of around 13%. The survey also indicates that the multi-party charter accumulated 33% and are 6% off the pace of the ANC. This is the second telephone survey of this nature since the inaugural poll in October 2023. The survey outlined that the biggest issues facing the nation are in unemployment, corruption, load shedding, weak leadership, and crime. Dr. Greg Mills is now joining us on the line. Dr. Mills, good evening. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Not at all. Good to chat to you.
Sure. So tell us about the quantum of people that have been surveyed, the demographic makeup of it as well, and what it reveals.
Yeah, so the survey was done on 1,506 people, which is quite big for a survey of this sort. It's weighted exactly according to national statistics on where people live and their demographics. So, it reflects as closely as possible the makeup of South Africa. It's actually the third survey we've done, so we've got something of a trend line over the last 18 months. But the previous one was done in October last year. And obviously with the election coming up, we wanted to check where the trend lines were, and particularly since this is the first representative sample done since the formation of the MK party. So that's obviously a very important part of our political makeup now, so we wanted to see how that reflected in terms of those changes.
So what's the purpose with the purpose behind the survey as well, considering that you've also included the multi-party charter as a block?
Well, the multi-party charter, of course, is a composition of DA at its rump, and then IFP, the Freedom Front, Action SA, and others, ACDP. And that provides an indication, because they have actually formed a formal alliance, a little like the, in some respects, the SACP, COSATU, ANC, although they don't contest the election individually, those parties. But the MPC has formed an alliance for this election, so it's important to record them in terms of where they sit relative to the other major parties. They've come down a bit in the overall survey to around 33%, because the other parties, particularly the IFP, but the other constituent elements, with the exception of the DA, have also lost support, and most notably, of course, the IFP to MK in KZN. So it's a way of reflecting where South Africa is heading politically, but also a way of reflecting what South Africans are thinking about. So the questions we ask, and again, this is to establish a trend line, because we've asked these questions before, are on things like, what you feel is the top problem facing South Africa. That consistently is unemployment, 28% of people. Corruption is the second highest at 27%. So those two together, well over half of respondents. And I suspect that that's one of the big reasons costing the ANC so much of these polls. Load shedding is third. And then we've seen a flip between weak leadership and crime. Crime was in fourth place in the previous poll. It's now weak leadership. And again, I suspect that impacts negatively on the ANC. So those are the top 4 or 5 issues. We also ask questions about foreign policy. We're trying to determine where South Africa's foreign policy, whether South Africa's foreign policy agrees or aligns with what people are interested in. And very interestingly, 43% of respondents came out saying that the South Africa's foreign policy should align closely with that of the West or with other democracies, and 15% of that with the BRICS. So again, this might well be an issue costing the ANC more than it realizes.
And staying on the foreign policy aspect, the ANC's Zimbabwe policy will cost it more votes than its gains. That is one of the presentations that you have there. One of the of the slideshows as part of the presentation. Why was it framed as ANC's Zimbabwe policy?
Sorry, say that again, please.
So on your slide, the presentation with all the statistics, you have under foreign policy, you refer to the ANC's Zimbabwe policy will cost it more votes than its gains. Why is it framed as the ANC's Zimbabwe policy?
Well, because the ANC is in the government and it leads in terms of foreign policy. So you've got to distinguish. If it was a DA, if a DA was running government, we would ask that question about the DA's foreign policy.
Yeah, but what makes it a Zimbabwe policy?
What makes it? We ask people basically, do you agree with the ANC's position on Zimbabwe, the government's position on Zimbabwe? And the answer they came up with, about half said it makes no difference to the way that they vote.
Yeah.
Half of the remaining half say that, in fact, it turns them off the ANC. And again, it's similar results on Ukraine, Russia, and similar results on the Middle East, which suggests that the ANC has not got the balance right.
Okay, and the final one, just on the Western Cape, I see that according to your results, the Democratic Alliance will still have the majority at around 53% of the vote. Interestingly, an Ipsos poll that came out last year, maybe if they do another poll, the numbers would be different. But theirs came at below 50%. Do you know what could be the reasons behind that difference?
Well, in fact, other polls had, in our earlier poll had the DA higher in the Western Cape. I suspect possibly, and we would have to dig more into the data, maybe the Israel-Palestine issue in the Western Cape, because it is a touch paper among communities there. I mean, interestingly, in the Western Cape, where something like 12% of South Africans live, third of people polled said it was the best province it was the best run province in the country. In the city of Cape Town, where 8% of South Africans live, again, a third said it was the best run metro. So these contradict each other to some extent, but the DA still has a healthy majority in the Western Cape. So probably the province with the most interest is going to be KZN, because you've seen MK reach to about 25% very quickly of the vote.
Yeah.
And that pushes basically the DA and the ANC level pegging, and it means that some form of coalition government is going to happen in KZN, but indeed some form of coalition government is going to happen across South Africa.
Thank you so much for your time. That's Dr. Greg Mills, Executive Director of the Brandhurst Foundation.
After a convincing 7-3 victory against Bristol City, Brighton ladies now have a massive assignment to burgle maximum points from Man City ladies. The Seagulls can't wait to escape from their unpleasant bottom half position, but second-place Citizens want to dethrone Chelsea ladies from the summit. This is the FA Women's Super League. Brighton and Hove Albion ladies versus Manchester City ladies on Sunday 17 March at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Attention filmmakers, are you ready? It's time to showcase the vibrant tapestry of KZN's cultural heritage at the Simon Mabunu Sabela KZN Film and Television Awards, South Africa's ultimate celebration of cinematic excellence. In partnership with the SABC, then KZN EDTEA, we champion innovation, paving the way for the future of cinema. This year, we go beyond imagination. Cut, edit your 1-minute submissions, because a call for entries is now open until the 28th of March 2024. For more information, visit www.kznfilms.co.za or follow us on social platforms. Join the conversation using the hashtag SSA24. KZN Film, our kingdom, your stage.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Well, we continue our coverage of political news as we head into the elections. So, remember that we once had an interview with the former Finance Minister Des van Rooyen a couple of weeks ago, actually. And I specifically asked him about whether or not he'll be joining the Mkhonto weSizwe party. Do you remember this? As Des van Rooyen, do you support the MK party?
Look, I'm a member of the ANC. I've never resigned from the ANC. I've never joined MK party. So I'm not sure why that question.
Yeah, but do you support the MK party? Former President Jacob Zuma also is still a member of the ANC, and he's supporting the MK party. As Des van Rooyen, are you supporting the MK party?
Look, let's support any process that is promoting our democracy. People do have a choice to choose the parties of they are servants. So I don't think, truly speaking, it's for me to come and say support this or not support that. But let's support the democratic process that allow for establishment and for people to join those parties that are established under our democratic system.
But I want to know from Des van Rooyen, though, does he support the MK party?
I'm still a member of the ANC. What type of a question is this, Albert? I'm still a member of the ANC.
Yeah, like I said, former President Jacob Zuma is also still a member of the ANC, and of course his membership has been suspended now, pending a disciplinary process. However, though, he had gone public to state that he supports the MK party and want other people to support the MK party. I want to know, does Des van Rooyen support the MK party?
Des van Rooyen has not went public to say he supports the MK party. Des van Rooyen is still a member of the ANC.
So you don't support the MK party?
No, I've never said I support or not support. I'm still a member of the ANC.
Yeah, but I want to get into the politics of it. And the politics of it will only come from the answer that you give me. Do you support the MK party?
That I've never made. Maybe you should accept that I've never made any pronouncement about my support or not supporting the MK party.
Yeah, that's the reason that I'm asking you now.
I'm the member of the ANC.
Yeah, I'm asking you now, do you support the formation of the MK party? Do you support the MK party?
Look, it's just that you are personalizing this question, but the rest of the matter is that I'm here to articulate the statement from the extended NEC of NKZN.
And the Senate NEC of MKMDA is very clear to say we are not going to oppose members or we are not going to victimize members for joining any other party. So that simply suggests that as MKMDA NEC, we support the existence of any political party in the electoral system of South Africa.
Okay, so you support the MK party?
We are not singling out MK party.
Yeah.
There are other parties that have been, some of them have been started by our members. Recently there was a retired general who is a member of MKMDA who started his own party. Mm-hmm. And there are members who have joined that party, you know. So we are, and recently, as you know, some of our figures have joined other political parties. So definitely the fact that we say members should join parties of their choice does not mean we support those parties.
Yeah. Well, on Friday, he resigned with immediate effect, and his name appeared on the leaked list of the MK party that was submitted to the IEC. Somebody else, though, that has resigned from the ANC is Dr. Kgoshi Letlhapa, who is now a member of Action SA, who has been appointed the new Shadow Minister for Health. And also remember that he's the former president of the Health Professionals Council of South Africa, amongst many other titles. Dr. Letlhapa, good evening. Thank you so much for making time for us. Why did you join Action SA?
Good evening to you and good evening to the listeners. I was asked to come and serve, and I engaged with them, and they made a compelling case, and I've been thoroughly disappointed about the performance of the party that I've been a member of since 2010. I've been a card-carrying member, and there's been no progress. And I think it's a multitude of factors, and possibly the president of the ANC looking for a pen to sign a bill that doesn't make sense, called the NHI bill, was the last straw, precipitated by seeing young doctors that could not find work and seeing losing healthcare professionals to violence, and none of those cases of matters of healthcare professionals get solved. On Tuesday last week, I went to bury a colleague, and on yesterday, I went to bury a son-in-law. Both of them were shot. So it's a multitude of factors. Yeah. But the point is, I've been in the party, and I've never been engaged in any serious manner on policy matters affecting an area that I am active in, and some strangers thought my ideas resonate. And they invited me to a discussion around June, where they were just discussing with people in different sectors. They invited me to their policy conference in September, and I shared certain ideas. They incorporated some of the things that I believe in into their health policy. So when they came knocking early this year to say, can you join us and head the health portfolio, it was really a question of, I've always advocated for change. I'm a person of action. Here's a group that genuinely wants to make the country better. Yep. And I raise my hand.
Dr. Letlhapa, I hope that we will make some time for us so that we can discuss some of the proposals that you guys have as Action SA, how to deal with the health crisis that we currently face in the country. That is Dr. Kgoshi Letlhapa, now Action SA member, appointed as the Shadow Minister for Health, a former member of the ANC as well, who has left the party to join Action SA. A lot is happening during these elections. Apologies, we're late for news headlines.
In the headlines, the IEC is expected to brief the media at 6 p.m. tonight. The executive chairperson of the Institute of Election Management Services in Africa says the DA's request to have the US observe the upcoming elections is a violation of the Constitution. And the Ukrainian Prime Minister says former US President Donald Trump will not give a penny to Ukraine if he is re-elected. We'll have all those details and more at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Still a big backlog leaving the airport. Tambo International at Joburg got your way up to Tembisa and Clayville. It's a collision on Lost Load earlier today. Truck losing a load of mayonnaise all over the highway. Pretty sticky situation, that one. A bit of messy as well. But it means the traffic is queuing heavily, queuing from the R24 East Barbara Road area. From that point there, this is the back of the queue, right through passing the airport up to Pomona Road in the R21. You might want to elect us to hop onto some alternative routes and avoid that one. The N3 going south, the crash at London Road earlier this afternoon. It's been clear, but it's left a backlog of traffic coming very slow from the Buccleuch interchange territory. Pretoria today, bit of pressure on the N1 going north of Garsfontein. The Mopani Highway has a crash just near the Hairpin Bend, so quite heavy as you get onto it from Eskio and Pathlali. Durban, Pietermaritzburg, now very heavy in this tanker crash scene between Linfield Park and Ashburton. It's a small tanker overturned on the central reservation, so there's an impact both Durban bound and Pietermaritzburg bound just south of Ashburton. There's also some quite heavy traffic going out to Pinetown from Spaghetti Junction towards Paradise Valley. That's traffic getting caught in the roadworks, and a queue at Isipingo on your way down to Twenty Hill this afternoon, backing up towards the old airport area in Durban. Cape Town today, the route out through Hospital Bend, the N2 is quite busy. There's also a problem coming into Cape Town with a broken down vehicle at Hospital Bend, and that traffic pushing back towards the M5 highway.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Kapele.
In your sports this hour, let's start things off with cricket. Team South Africa are in the women's T20 cricket final at the African Games. This is all thanks to a 50-run win over Uganda today. South Africa posted 122 for 4 in their 20 overs, with captain and player of the match Nondumiso Shangaze hitting 42 of 38 balls. In defending their total, Kayla Reneka's bowling performance of 3 of 13 played a crucial role in restricting Uganda to 72 all out, claiming the win with 8 balls to spare. South Africa will now face the winner of the second semi-final between Zimbabwe and Nigeria in the final on Wednesday at 10-2 local time, and we'll definitely keep you up to date with that. In football, Bafana head coach Hugo Bruce has confirmed that a meeting with the Premier Soccer League chairman Irvin Khoza has been scheduled for this week. He says that he hopes to solve most of the problems that he's been encountering with the league and its clubs. Bruce has been very vocal about his desire and attempt at meeting the PSL and discussing the national team's programs.
And see that everyone will tell what he has to tell. It's easy when we are together alone in the room to tell something. No, tell it when everybody is there and try to have a discussion, if there has to be a discussion. And you can progress when you discuss about some things. And this is what I wanted from the beginning when I was here. So this is something we discuss now with Mr. Khoza. But there are other things also. So we have new players now that we have. When we see new players, we only can see them in Bafana. But because the clubs will not release them when we play for Olympics. They will not release them when we play for qualifiers for Chan.
Well, as he mentioned there, one of the biggest challenges he has experienced in his tenure is having players released from their clubs for the COSAFA Cup and Chan qualifiers. PSL clubs only release players during FIFA international breaks, but Bruce says that this situation doesn't help the growth of Bafana.
But it's not always. I can't always test the players with Bafana because you play qualify. You can't take the risk that it will not succeed. So you can. If they can play a level, then they can show their skills. And they have international games. What is important for those players? And it will be more easy for me then to see, okay, Olympics, okay, Chan. This one is ready to come with Bafana. Now I have to look at it in my team. And I can do it for friendlies. But I can't do it in June with that team. It's impossible.
Elsewhere, Bayer Leverkusen manager Xavi Alonso says that they're not yet talking about the season's Bundesliga title, despite being 10 points clear of Bayern Munich at the top of the table. Leverkusen are the only team in Europe that is unbeaten this season. However, despite their dominance, Alonso says that they're taking it one game at a time. In athletics, Jovan van Vuren has qualified for the Paris Olympic Games after jumping 8.30 meters yesterday during the Gauteng North Championships at Pilditch. A massive personal best for the former South African long jump champion, and he says that he's all geared up for the games. In cricket, in tennis, Caroline Wozniacki and Angelique Kerber have recently returned from maternity leave and will face off in the BNP Paribas Open round of 16 after picking up wins at the WTA 1000 event yesterday. In an all-wildcard tussle in the night session, Wozniacki claimed a 6-2, 4-6 and 6-love win over Katie Volinets. And then earlier on, Kerber ousted number 17 seed Veronika Kudermetova 6-4 and 7-5 to book her spot in the round of 16.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a great match. We've played each other so much. We know each other extremely well. There's going to be no secrets out there. We both know each other's game inside out, so we know what to do. We know what to expect. And it's really going to be about who is going to be better on the day. It can go either way, but we'll see who comes out playing better on the day. That's really it. There's I don't know how many wins I have or she has against one another, but I think I heard that this is the 16th time that we're going to play each other, so I'm pretty sure that we're pretty close in the matchup, head to head, and so we'll see. It's going to be a great match regardless, and I'm excited for it.
On that note, it's a wrap from my side. For SAFM Sport, I'm Tumin Khapele Mudimugyo.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And it's time for MoneyWeb Market Update with Jimmy Moya. Hi, Jimmy. Good evening. Welcome to the show. So today you're in conversation with the ANC.
Good evening, Aldrin. Good evening to me, and good evening to the listeners. Yes, it's not often that I speak to the political side of the conversation, but it is of business interest, and that's why I'm having that conversation. The ANC, in their latest manifesto, as well as in their 2019 manifesto, spoke about something called prescribed assets. Effectively, they want to use the pension funds of South Africans to invest in certain infrastructure projects in South Africa and certain industrialization efforts in South Africa. Now, that can be anything from government bonds to housing to state-owned entities, and you can see where my concern comes in from a business perspective, right? So we're going to speak to the Economic Transformation Committee of the ANC around this point within their manifesto to understand how it is they plan to tackle this, how it is they plan to navigate this, particularly as it relates to preserving and protecting the pensions of South Africans. I feel that's always important to look at, and we can't just be having funds allocated to things that are not profitable and that don't make sense. So we're going to speak to them, hopefully get some answers out of that. I suspect it'll be an ongoing conversation, but we'll kick it off today. And then we're also going to be looking at some other government-related things. Transnet is putting in 200 plus million rand to rehabilitate the roads around the Durban port following the state in which the roads have fallen into as a result of all the trucks there. So Transnet is putting down a lot of money for that. So we're going to speak to them and try and get a sense of what that investment looks like and what that investment entails. And then we're going to look at the data breach that took place at the CIPC. Obviously, that is of concern for business owners, entrepreneurs, business individuals that have companies registered with the CIPC in South Africa. We're going to look at the depth of that breach, try and get an understanding of what its implications could be and how we can protect ourselves in this interim period. Because even though the information has been leaked and according to the hackers, it's been available to them since 2021. So this has been an ongoing thing for the last 3 or 2.5 years. So we're definitely going to look into that and see how compromised that is at the moment and try and make sense of all of that. And then we had a conversation last week around the two-pot retirement system. And the conversation was cut short due to the time limitations of our show. So I thought maybe let's have a second part of that conversation. So we're going to dig into that for our Personal Finance Monday again, unpacking more things around the two-pot retirement system. Can you invest in tax-free savings accounts? Can you decide how the money is invested? And all of those other questions that investors might want to know. So I think that's something to look forward to there as well. But before we get to that, we've been having quite an interesting day on the markets in that the Rand has strengthened almost to 18 Rand 60, but it still doesn't matter because Bitcoin is above 72,000 and Henko Creer has been keeping an eye on that throughout the day. And he joins me now to give us a summary of that move and some of the other moves. Good afternoon, Henko. Thanks as always for the time. Again, we start the week off with Bitcoin.
Yes, Jimmy, hello to you and to Aldrin, and good evening to all the listeners. Yes, we start off with Bitcoin. We start off with a wonderful Rand. I haven't seen the Rand this strong in such a long time, and it does. The rest doesn't matter because world markets quite under pressure today. U.S. markets at the moment, for example, trading about 0.5% weaker, and then European stocks finished in the red with the FTSE 100 and the CAC 40 each losing 0.4% this afternoon, and the DAX closed 0.7% weaker. And similar story here by us, the JSE lost 0.3% today and closed at a level of 73,482 points. The industrial index lost about 0.01%, did not move at all today. Then the resources index lost quite a bit. It finished 1% weaker, and the financial index 0.1% weaker at the end of the day. BHP didn't have a great Monday. BHP lost 4% today. Glencore finished 3.5% down. Anglo 2.5% weaker, and First Rand finished today 1% weaker. Other companies that also experienced the blue Monday were Kumba and Sasol, Absa and WBHO. For example, Kumba lost 7.5% today. Sasol finished 6% weaker. Absa 5% down. WBHO finished today 4% weaker, and the multi-choice group, Barloworld, Italtile, as well as South32, each finished today 3% down. But on the upside, Harmony had a wonderful day, finished 8% stronger, followed by Sappi, Montauk, and DRD Gold. Those three each gained 4%, and Nedbank, the MTN Group, and Anglo Gold each gained 3%. On the commodities market, the price of gold sky high, $2,182 an ounce. Silver now $24.50. Platinum is trading at $935, and palladium at $1,030. The price of Brent crude currently $81.80 a barrel. And then, as I said, the Rand really looking up today, now sitting at 18 Rand 65 to the US dollar, 23 Rand 90 to the pound, 20 Rand 39 to the euro, and 12 Rand 30 to the Australian dollar. And yes, Bitcoin currently trading at $72,000, and that's now more and more edging towards 1.4 million Rand. Jimmy, that's how the markets performed on this Monday afternoon.
Thank you very much for that update, Henku. It looks as though it's going to be another interesting week with things like the CPI that's coming out of the US later on Wednesday. But we'll dig into these and other stories when we come back just after your show, Aldrin. For now, it's back to you and the team.
Thank you so much. Jimmy Moyaha is back again just after 6 o'clock. We're taking your calls on 086 000 2032 and your voice notes on 0614 104 107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
SABC Sport remembers the fallen hero, the legend of the beautiful game. Spiwe Dr. Mandi Mkhonza, a great football analyst with a unique language that hits straight to the hearts of the fans.
Technically, the teams are in a different level, and the quality also shows.
This former defender just knew how to draw the undivided attention of the football-loving community. Rest in peace, Dr. Mnandi. You left a remarkable footprint. SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Excluding penalty shootouts and not regarding penalty shootouts, has a goalkeeper or goalkeepers ever scored in the derby?
The only goalkeeper that I know scored goals or many goals was Rowan Fernandez.
My guess is Brian Baloy scored the goal as a goalkeeper.
A goalkeeper has scored in the derby. In fact, he scored 4 penalties in a row. And if you can't remember it, it's because it happened way back in the 1970s. 4 penalties. Joseph Banks Setlodi is indeed the correct answer. He's the only goalkeeper who has scored in the derby other than in penalty shootouts. He scored 4 penalties for Chiefs against Pirates in 1971 and 1972. 4 penalties in different derbies over those years.
Top Sport on SAFM. This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Good afternoon, Natreni and SA listeners. I'll quote from the words of the late Zimbabwean president, Ntate Mugabe. He once said, Tony Blair, mind your Britain. let me mind my own Zimbabwe. Tony Blair, mind your Britain. Let me mind my own Zimbabwe. That was Ndate Mugabe telling Tony Blair. I'm referring to this of inviting another country to come be a watchdog on our elections in South Africa. Bulelani letuka ematatiele.
Good day, Adrian and the listeners. Definitely, from my look point of view, ANC, they are in trouble. They are now doing whatsoever to cover up. Why are they scared of United States? And for your information, they are just here to observe, not to interfere. Let us not use the word interfere. They are here to observe. And other nations, they will be here to observe. So please, don't be negative.
Good afternoon, Adrian. Good afternoon to the SAFM listeners. Adrian, I think MK Party is going to surprise a lot of people in South Africa. They will surprise them not only in KwaZulu-Natal, but I would like to believe that in other provinces such as Gauteng, Mpumalanga, and Free State. Segwanele from Pretoria.
Adrian, afternoon is Kosnat speaking here. You see, for me, I agree with the DA because no one doesn't understand how disparate ANC is when it's come to ruling. So they will do whatever it takes just to win that elections. Because another thing, we always find that there are papers, voting papers that are being found on the river, others on the hills. Who throw those papers? Because you find that those papers, people have been voted on those papers and then they throw it. Who did that? Are those teachers who are supporting ANC, who are always there in a voting station?
#SAFMBTH.
And let's go to Patrick, who's joining us from Bethlehem. Good evening.
Hey, Aldrin, good evening, my co-captain of BTH pilot, always giving us a wonderful show.
Siyabonga, welcome.
You know, Aldrin, I just wanted to voice my humble opinion about the hullabaloo by the Democratic Alliance. You know, when you are about to write an examination, being a young person, a few days before the exam start, you get what we call butterflies in your stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, you know, if you haven't studied well, if you do very well, that you haven't studied very well. Now, I think the DA now is suffering from that syndrome of butterflies in their stomach, and they really need to be given some medication. Point number one, the DA is quite aware that they don't stand a chance of winning to rule the Republic of South Africa. Why do I say that? DA is an honorable party in our country that has been electing and taking part in our election for couple of years, and they have acceded and affiliated to the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, and the performance of the IEC is enshrined in our Constitution. So for the DA really to have the audacity of inviting USA to come and observe our observation, it's not only disingenuous, but actually is to insult and undermine the capabilities of the Republic of South Africa to doing its job. And for me, really they need to be called to the book by IEC to clarify that.
Well, let's see what the IEC is going to say now. They have a press briefing now at 6 o'clock. Let's hear what the response to that is going to be. Hassan is joining us from Joburg. Good evening.
Good evening. Aldrin, you asked Mr. Mills about why do you say ANC policy when it's the government?
Yeah.
Now, this is the very guy who, when South Africa took Israel to the ICJ, he, in the Daily Maverick, published an article, him and Ray Hartley, basically saying that this is an ANC's case. And of course, they added on to the insinuation that other countries were paying for it. I wonder who can take a guy seriously like this, because he's so ideologically anti anything left. He's a colonialist.
Okay. Hassan there from Joburg, 0614-104-107. And you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086-000-2032.
The only talk radio afternoon drive show that makes sense. Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear, right here on SAFM. SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Good afternoon, this is your captain speaking with just a little flight information. We're flying at an altitude of 37,000 feet and our airspeed is 400 miles an hour.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to BTH Airline. I'm your co-pilot, Aldrin Sampear, and I'm with you from 3 to 6, flying you through the turbulent airwaves. But the landing will be smooth.
So just sit back and relax and enjoy the rest of the flight.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Well, we've come to the end of our voyage. Thank you so much for choosing Flight SAFM BTH 3 to 6 with me, Aldrin Sampear. Today we're playing out with Cesare Ivora Sodade, and our parting shot is from John Wooden, who once said, "Be true to yourself, make each day a masterpiece." And Khalisho from Cape Town, Khaliso from Cape Town is reading our credits this evening.
As we are about to land this flight SAFM BTH 3 to 6 plane, a special thank you to the team for always gracing us with invigorating and heartwarming, heart-wrenching news that go beyond the headline. Thank you to Kanya, Charles, Temba, Dumi, Mark, and of course the captain of this plane, Aldrin Sampear. This is Khaliso in Cape Town. Have a good evening and God bless.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
And remember to love each other and lead with compassion. Totsins, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Mostrava esse caminho longe, quem mostrava esse caminho longe, esse caminho para Santo Tomé. Saudade, saudade, saudade desse minha terra, San Inclau.